Hello dissectors. Today we are taking a look at the dark, ghostly history of the Golden Lamb Restaurant and Hotel in Ohio. A place so creepy that the Food Network named it the most haunted restaurant in Ohio. But this begs the question, what makes this place so scary that it deserves this title? Well, this is an old building with more than 215 years of business under its belt. As we all know, plenty can be experienced in that time, from wrongful death, heartbreak and rage, contributing factors that might leave some spirits wanting answers or feeling trapped in an eternal loop of regret. Established in 1803, Jonas Seaman had journeyed from New Jersey to Ohio in the hopes of making a fresh start. He decided to open a house of public entertainment and paid just $4 for the license required. Now, if you're wondering how the old public houses would get their strange and unusual names like the Golden Lamb, it comes from years gone by where many of the travellers couldn't read, and so visual aids served a better purpose in the form of paintings. Scary happenings over the years have not put people off visiting this fine establishment, as it has seen political figures, movie stars, singers and writers lodging here. These include Charles Dickens, Neil Armstrong, Mitt Romney and singer Kesha, to name a few. But who still lurks here? And what are their tragic stories? Well, the first ghost said to haunt here is a little girl called Sarah Stubbs. Her father died when she was only 5 years old, leading her mother to relocate them both to the Golden Lamb, where Sarah's uncle was the hotel manager. With a fresh start in mind, things were okay at first, but then heartbreak struck, and her mother died just 2 years later. Even though she suffered so much loss, she had a happy life and did all the normal things that many of us do. Sarah moved out, got married, and died at the age of 79 in 1957. So if she didn't die young or even in the building, why has her spirit been seen so many times by staff and visitors? The historian of the Golden Lamb, as well as education director of the Warren County Historical Society, is John Zimkus, and he believes the reason Sarah is haunting the Golden Lamb is due to a paranormal theory called the imprint theory. At this point you might be thinking, Suzanne, what is an imprint theory? Well, it is based on the idea that if someone has experienced a lot of heartbreak or trauma in a certain location, a part of their energy becomes scarred by it, and when they die, it might be possible for them to be drawn to that location again. As human beings, we do crave closure in life, and most of the time it can be due to personal relationships. Sarah lost a lot at a very young age, and maybe this is why she travels back to this period, when her mother was still alive and life seemed easier. Sarah is a friendly ghost though, and so nothing to be afraid of. If you experience flickering lights or see an object either fall off the wall or from a table, these are all said to be her way of saying hello. Her bedroom was on the 4th floor and is now part of the museum at the Golden Lamb. Visitors to the museum have mentioned some very creepy things, and John Zimkus claims to have a story that is strange and unusual. He said, "One of our servers, her name's Jane, heard a commotion happening in front of the partition of Sarah's childhood bedroom. Jane goes over and asks this lady if she's all right, and the lady says, 'I just took this picture,' and the lady shows her digital camera to Jane. Now, in Sarah's room there is a little brown dress that belonged to her laid out on the bed. However, in the photograph on the camera, it wasn't there. Then in front of Jane, the lady takes another photograph, and once again, the dress is not in the photo. Now, I've heard of people seeing things in photographs that weren't there at the time, but vanishing clothes is a new one, and I can totally understand why the poor lady got such a shock. But it is not just little parlour tricks that Sarah is believed to do. She, like any child, loves to play, and when young guests visit, she wonders if they will play with her. One such child even turned around to his mother and asked if he could play with the little girl. The mother looked around but couldn't see who the boy was referring to, so replied, "What little girl?" And sending chills down his mother's spine, he points and says, "The one in the white dress on the stairs." There was no one there. They do say that children are receptive to the paranormal as their minds are more open to new things. Could this be why Sarah is seen by so many children? It does appear though that Sarah is not alone in her haunting of the Golden Lamb, and one of the other spirits is a young girl named Eliza Clay. While travelling with her mother and father to Washington DC, poor Eliza became quite ill, and so it was decided that they would take a break at the inn. After a doctor came out and checked the young girl over, it was believed she needed rest but would make a full recovery. The problem was that her father needed to get moving again and couldn't really wait for his daughter to feel well enough to travel. You see, her father was Henry Clay, and President John Quincy Adams's Secretary of State, as well as US Senator for Kentucky. So a guy with a lot of responsibilities and a need to keep a tight schedule. It was decided he would travel on without his wife and Eliza, and they'd stay at the inn until his return. But tragedy struck, and poor Eliza took a turn for the worse and died at the inn. Her mother made the decision to have her daughter buried in the local cemetery, as it would be too far to get her back home again. Now that must have been a heartbreaking decision to make, and maybe it's the reason that Eliza lingered on. It is said she can be heard giggling and playing in the hallways. Very late one evening, a man came back to the inn after many drinks with friends. Now he unlocked his bedroom door, after many attempts it might be said, walks into his bedroom and manages to trip over his own feet. What he didn't know was he was being watched, and so the sound of a young girl laughing at his antics came as a huge shock. Now he manages to get to his feet and staggers back to the hallway. There is no one there, especially not a young girl. But then he's left with a very unsettling feeling. Was he really that drunk that he was imagining things? Because the other option was more upsetting, and that would be he had just encountered a ghost. Have you ever seen a ghost? How did you feel? Were you alarmed, scared, or surprisingly calm? I would love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. Now, I mentioned earlier that spirits can linger for many reasons, and those might include heartbreak and unfinished business, and 2 of the ghosts at the Golden Lamb are said to have experienced just these things. The first would be Charles R. Sherman, who died at the inn in 1829 from typhoid fever, aged just 41 years old and leaving behind a wife and 11 children. As if losing a husband or father's not bad enough, his family also ended up penniless after his death, which just adds salt to the wound. Most of the Sherman children had to be put up for adoption as there was not enough money to feed them all. Can you imagine having to make that kind of decision? It's thought that heartbreak and guilt are what keeps Charles at the inn, as he has been seen wandering the hallways of the inn as if lost in thought, and the smell of his cigars can be detected along the corridors that he's just walked down. A few decades later, our next ghost entered the building and lingered around because of his sudden death, which left unfinished business. Clement Vallandigham was quite a controversial man in his time. He was the leader of the anti-war Copperheads, known as Peace Democrats, way back in the 1860s. Now, if you were seen as being unsupportive of the war, General Ambrose Burnside declared that any person committing expressed or implied treason would be in deep crap. Punishments included banishment and even death. When Clement was arrested, he was found guilty, but President Abraham Lincoln decided that he didn't deserve death and banished him instead. In 1864, though, he decided to throw caution to the wind and journeyed back to Ohio, where he began to practice law, a decision that would come back to haunt him, literally. On a cold Christmas Eve in 1870, a bar fight broke out between a Democrat named Tom McKeon and a Republican called Tom Myers. A fight that turned deadly and ending with Myers lying dead on the floor. Now, the defense argument was that while they were fighting, Myers went to pull a gun out of his pocket to shoot McGeehan, and in doing so, managed to shoot himself. The court was trying to see if this was the case, or whether McGeehan had managed to get the gun and shoot his opponent instead. Now, Clement was trying to prove his theory and spent a whole day running different tests. One of these was measuring the powder burns you'd have if you shot yourself. He did this using a gun and a piece of cloth. That evening, he went back to the Golden Lamb where he was staying, excited by his findings. There was a package waiting for him which was to help with his presentation of the case the following day. It was a replica gun. When he got to his room, Clement laid both guns on the dresser and started to practice for his presentation in court in front of 2 of his colleagues. But when he got to the part of the demonstration where the gun would be needed, he picked up the gun with live ammunition and shot himself in the abdomen. This sad outcome did have a positive result though. McGeehan was acquitted and released from custody. I mean, Clement really did give him the best defence by mistakenly reenacting the horrible death. His ghost has been seen walking around the building, and employees have witnessed him peering out of the windows of the property, looking off into the distance. Today, the Golden Lamb is still welcoming guests, alive or dead, to stay at their establishment, a place that even the employees are drawn to in death. You see, from 1878 to 1914, Albert Stubbs was the hotel manager, when suddenly he collapsed behind the front desk and died where he dropped. So if you decide to visit the Golden Lamb, make sure to be extra nice to the staff, as Albert might not like it if you don't.